Welcome and thank you for tuning in to the 412 Double Play Podcast. The Pirates had quite a week. Things are really clicking, and even when they're falling short, you could see the leaves for the trees. I am, as always, your host, Michael Castrogano, joined by me, my co-host and Double Play partner, Ed Wassel. Ed, we're going to get into the stuff from this past week, but how are you feeling? I've mentioned to listeners that you had to take leave last week.
I'm feeling much better than I was last week.
So, medical issues aside, it was a pretty fun week to be a Pirates fan. There were, and there have been, some local and national media who have been criticizing things that this team has been doing. And to some extent, you could pretty much agree to it. During the London series, the Phillies and Mets over in London, and there was a video that was kind of going and making the rounds on social media, where they're basically calling out the Pirates like, hey, spend money, you can be like the Phillies too. I don't know if you saw that video, but
I didn't.
It's basically like, oh yeah, we're spending money and we're winning games, and it's like, but that's not how all teams operate. The
No, they're
Mets
spending
go
a
out and
ton. They're spending a ton of money. It's not like they're just spending a little more than the Pirates.
but the thing is, you can spend a lot of money and still fail, which is
Right.
what's happening with the Mets.
We've seen
To
the
some
Mets. We've
degree,
seen
what
it
happened with
with the Yankees in the
Padres.
past. The Padres,
Yeah.
the Padres.
Like, spending money doesn't guarantee winning. What you see the Orioles doing, what the Braves have done, the Rays have done for years.
The Astros, the Astros built their team up through the draft.
Yep.
And I mean, granted, they did trade for a couple pieces like Verlander and whatnot, but their core was built up through the draft because they had multiple years in a row where they were like the number 1 or number 2 draft picks.
Yep. I think they had 3 straight years with the number 1 pick, and that's how they got. It was Pell, Correa, and then that one kid who didn't sign. All right, well, let's take a look at the transactions from this past week. The week kicked off with a slew of moves. Catcher Jason DeLay was activated from the injured list, optioned to Indy. Marco Gonzalez was moved to the 60-day IL to make room on the 40-man. If you look at the transaction log on the Pirates website, they don't have it listed right, but DeLay was on the 60-day. He was moved there previously for, I think, when they added like Jeffries or something. I don't remember the exact move, but so Gonzalez is on the 60-day. I mean, he's almost at 60 days anyway. They're going to start a throwing pattern with him soon. I'll talk about that in a second. Ahead of the Dodgers series, left-handed pitcher Jose Hernandez was optioned to Indy. Michael A. Taylor placed on paternity leave. He welcomed his son, Michael Taylor Jr., this past weekend. And Ji-Hwan Bae landed on the 10-day IL with a reported right wrist sprain. On the other side, right-handed pitcher Ben Heller had his contract selected from Indy. Grant Cook was DFA'd. We also saw Jack Sawinski and Liover Peguero added back to the Pirates roster. Ed, I know we've got one name that we don't want to talk about here, so we're going to actually talk about someone who, at the time, I thought we definitely were going to try to avoid, and that's Jack Sawinski. Do you feel that he spent long enough in AAA to merit a call-up, and is he going to potentially turn things around? I know the results early have not been favorable. He's a very streaky hitter, so it's hard to say. What are your thoughts on Sawinski being back?
I thought he was called up way too soon. I mean, they just sent him down, like 2 weeks prior?
It's only been a couple weeks.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was 2 full weeks. Like, that's definitely not enough time to get yourself back, your confidence back up, get your swing right, whatever the deal was. And, I mean, like you mentioned, he came back up and he's almost right back to where he was before he was sent down.
Yeah, I think he only has 3 hits since he came back up. One of those hits was a home run, and we're obviously going to talk about that, how pivotal that was. But he wasn't really doing all that well in AAA. So the con side, and we talked about this when Davis was first sent down to Indianapolis, is what happens when you send a guy down. You demote a guy down to a lower level, thinking that they'll thrive there, build up their confidence, and then that doesn't happen. Then what do? You can't keep sending him down like that Family Guy sketch where Peter Griffin's keeps getting demoted in his fictional league. So I don't know. I mean, Sawinski has the potential to figure it out. I don't think he looks confident at the plate, and I feel like confidence. And we saw it this past season with Rowdy, and obviously I'll talk about that too. How key confidence can be in helping a player perform at the plate. Peguero was only up for a minute, and then he Saturday was sent back down when Taylor returned from maternity leave. Peguero didn't even get in the game. I forgot to add that on here, but so Peggy went right back down. That he knew that he was only going to come up for a couple of days, and that he was kind of a just in case sort of thing for, I guess, the Dodger series. But I kind of think that's not cool. You call a guy up he sees his buddy Nick Gonzalez like kicking butt and becoming the best second baseman in at least the National League. And he gets up and gets to ride the pine for a couple days and goes back to Indy.
Yeah, which I mean, we mentioned that with CSN last year, where it's like he was brought up and then never really given an opportunity. I mean, he at least got in for a few at bats and played a couple games, but nothing
Well,
to
the same thing happened
solidify.
with Swaggerty. I don't think that was last year. I think that was the year before in 22. So they tend to do stuff like that, for better or worse. But let's go ahead and jump into that weekly recap because there's a lot to talk about. It was a fun. 4 of these games were really fun, and then 2 of them were infuriating. So let's jump into it. Dodgers come to town, and they're a 3-headed monster at the top of that lineup. But Jared Jones on the bump, game 1 versus Tyler Glasnow, former Pirate. Jones prevails. 6 shutout innings, 3 hits, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. 7-8-9 of Holderman, Chapman, Bednar. They locked the game down. Jack Sawinski, as I mentioned, he had a solo home run in the 3rd inning, the lone run in the game as the Bucks won 1-0. Game 2, our other ace, Paul Skeens on the bump. Pirates spotted him an early 7-run lead in the 2nd inning. Skeens was cruising early, kind of hit some snags. Shohei hit a 2-run homer off him in the 3rd. He got a little bit too fastball happy. Just really wanted to get that fastball by Ohtani, but he was waiting on it. And then Andy Pagas got a solo shot in the 5th, but 5 innings, 3 runs, 6 hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. Still pretty good against that Dodgers lineup. Bullpen managed to hold that lead as the Pirates piled on some more for a 10-6 win. Olivares, Key, Nicky G, they each had multi-hit games to secure the win. And then in the final game, a weird first inning call by the umps kind of threw off the Pirates' mojo. Bailey Falter, he ended up giving up 4 runs in the 1st inning, another in the 5th. Ben Heller came on into the game. He just imploded, put the game basically out of reach. The Pirates made it close. You had a loud 462 foot home run by O'Neill Cruz in, I think, the 9th. But that was a 3-run shot. They ended up dropping the finale 11-7. That 1st inning, man on first, hit to right field. Edward Olivares trapped the ball. The umps call it a catch. He immediately throws it in. Would have probably gotten Mookie Betts at second, but because they challenged it and then after the fact decided that it was not a catch and had to reverse their ruling that the out on the field, they awarded Shohei a hit, and then it was 2 on, no outs instead of 1 on, 1 out. But I mean, taking 2 of 3 from the Dodgers, even given that, like, I think coming into the game, we had won like 8 of the previous 11 matchups. Do you think that a team, even as they have changes, because like over the past couple of years, there's been very few consistent pieces on this team. Do you think that some teams can just have another team's number regardless of who's wearing that uniform?
I do. I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, but I know we've mentioned in the past that the Pirates will play to the level of competition that they're playing, where it's
Yep.
like, they're playing a bottom feeder team and look like absolute trash. And then they're playing, maybe a division leader and they take 2 or 3 against them. It's one of those weird things where I don't know if it's the adrenaline, it's who you're playing. You get hyped up, and you're playing someone good, so you're that much more focused, and maybe you overlook those lesser teams, and that comes back to bite you.
I mean, that definitely happened. You look at the Mets series, the Angels series, the A's series. We definitely played under our potential. Red Sox series, and
We
those
hit the
kind
Mets
of
when they were hot, though. Like that's
we did. Yeah, they were really bad before that and really bad since that. We got the one good stretch they had this year, which is really unfortunate for
yeah.
us. But um, still, like the National League, the wild card race, especially, and I'm going to talk about that after talk about the Twin series, is in such flux that anybody could end up taking those at least 2 spots. Minnesota Twins in town this weekend, and wow, Mitch Keller, 6 shutout innings, 7 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. It was Chapman, Holderman, Bednar for 7-8-9, all zeros. Cruz and Joe Homer as the Pirates win 3-0. It was the 6th straight time that Mitch Keller had pitched at least 6 innings. Dating back to the beginning of May, he has was it 1 point? It's either 1.13 or 1.16 ERA. Like he's just been crushing it. I think about it in my notes somewhere. But Saturday, bullpen game for the Bucks. Never what you want to see, but the team somehow made it work. The offense struggled to get to the Twin starter before Rowdy Tellez, solo home run in the 7th. He drives in 2 more in the 8th and then scored a 4th run later that inning. Bullpen game of Majinski, Luis Ortiz, Brule, Stratton, Holderman, Bednar. They all put up zeros as the Pirates had back-to-back shutouts with a 4-0 win. And then today, Jared Jones, he got a bit shaky, got a rough call in the 1st inning, has 3 runs scored, did manage to go 5 innings, helped the bullpen out for the moment. The Pirates battled back, took the lead behind RBI hits from Triolo, Reynolds, and Joe, but the Twins got the equalizer in the 6th, eventually pushed to extras where they, again, unloaded on Ben Heller, scoring 7 runs. He hit 3 batters. Twins ended up winning 11-5. Joe Block was talking on the post game, or maybe it was during the inning, how it's the first time a Pirates pitcher has hit 3 batters in the same inning since Doc Ellis. And I'm just laughing because I'm like, he did it on purpose. It was the first 3 batters of the game. Like
Yeah, that was intentional.
I'm not gonna say you remember that game because it was like 1973 or something, but it was something like he went in and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna hit everybody until they throw me out. So that's where Ben Heller, Doc Ellis, exactly the same.
Yeah, they're the same caliber player and everything, obviously.
Same caliber. If you take that 1 inning completely out of context, they are the exact same player. I don't think any of us have anything positive to say about Ben Heller. We were talking before we started recording about how Ben Sherrington was talking on his weekly radio program, whatever, with the Fan, how they had to keep Ben Heller. They had to add him to the 40-man and activate him because he had an opt-out. And if they didn't, there was another major league team that was definitely going to take him. And granted, he had really strong metrics in the minor leagues, had a really good strikeout rate, had a lot of movement on his sweeper, but he just he could not miss bats in either of those games. And then at some points he couldn't miss,
People.
batters because he's hitting them too. So I if I were to take a guess, I'd say he got 2 swings and misses, and they were because they were just trying to go yard because they were up too much. They were like, well, I'll just swing for the fences, whatever. So I don't want to dwell on the Heller situation. I kind of want to talk about Rowdy. He looked awful in his first 2 at bats Saturday, but I was hanging out there. I'm watching in the 3rd one. You could see the moment where he gets confident. He had a foul ball down the right field line. It just cut foul, but it just seemed like he was locking in. And he had a couple more pitches before he hit the home run. And it just seems like something clicked. how big is confidence in impacting a player's performance, either positively or negatively?
Oh, it's huge. I know we've mentioned it before about how big the mental aspect of the game is. So if your confidence is shot, you're mentally out of it. It's gonna be almost impossible to succeed. So
And I
if your confidence level is up, your odds of being successful are also going to raise.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think that his comments after the game, he was really emotional. I think that might have been the first time he got a Gatorade bath or Powerade bath, whatever it is, from Martin Perez. And he was talking with, I think it was Haley Hunter, who's subbing in for Hannah Mears this weekend, how emotional he was and how he's been trying. Everybody who, like, within the organization has spoken glowingly about Rowdy for as much as the fans have been bashing him, that he gets there earlier than anyone else. He's putting in all the work in the cages. He said, and I'm paraphrasing the quote, but he wants to put pride in the jersey. He wants to, like, earn it. He knows that, like, he's there to do a job, and he wants to be a leader in the clubhouse. He wants to be able to support the team on the field with the bat, like all these different things. And I'm like, dang, did we all give up too early on Rowdy? Because I know he's last year wasn't great. First couple months weren't great. He's had multi-hit games in like 4 of his last 5 starts,
Well, I know we've
including
mentioned in the
today. I
past.
think he had 2 hits today.
We've mentioned in the past that, like, specifically when he stuck up for Bednar when he was having his early struggles.
Right.
Like, that's the kind of teammate that you want. That's the kind of guy you want in the clubhouse. And everyone has been ragging on him because of his struggles, you and I included. Like, he was pretty far up there on the DFA list for us. And
I mean,
maybe
I
we gave
talked about replacement first baseman as the special last week, so I was like, all
yeah.
right,
So
that maybe got things going. I don't know.
maybe we
Go
did
continue
kind of
though.
give up on him a little too early. But you also hear stories about guys like you mentioned, or you paraphrased like what he had said in his post game conference or whatever. Another one that pops in my mind is Chris Sale, where he talked about his time in Boston, and he was like, he almost felt that he didn't earn any of his contract. Basically, he's like, I played like crap my entire time there. He's like, I didn't earn any of that money.
Did
So now
he?
he's with
I just
yeah.
thought he was injured all the time. I
Well,
would not.
basically he was, but
Yeah.
so when he signed with Atlanta, he was like, I got to prove to not only myself but them that I'm worth this contract that they gave me.
Because you look at these people, and they're people. They're human beings just like anyone. And I know that's like an obvious statement, but we still revere them. You look at Paul Skeens, who's like a decade younger than both of us. I won't say like how many more than a decade. You look at Jared Jones and O'Neill Cruz, and we idolize them, but they're just people going and doing their job and wanting to be successful, because not just because they get paid for it, but because there's people who are counting on them to be successful. It's not just their family and their friends, it's hordes of fans who they legitimately don't want to let down. And
There are some that just do it for the money, though.
yeah, obviously, but I think that it kind of undersells how many of them just really want to be good and really aren't just chasing that bag, are legitimately seeking to benefit the team in any way that they can. And I'm seeing that with Rowdy, and we're starting to see the results. I think that confidence is back. I think the work that he's been doing is starting to pay off. The exit velocity has always been good. It was more a launch angle issue. And I mean, he got the 1 home run, his first one since like March 28th, I want to say. And outside of that, he's starting to hit line drives, and I'm okay with that. He's going to hit singles, he's going to hit doubles, and get the occasional home run. That's fine. He's going to clog up the base paths a bit with that speed, but whatever. It's better than a strikeout or ground into a double play, and he's being productive. That's kind of what you need right now.
Yeah.
We don't have that from first base if he's not able to do it. So, second thing I want to talk about from this week is the bullpen. Not going to talk about Heller, but they've had some issues early on. You mentioned about Bednar, Chapman. Like we've had some injuries. We've lost a number of pitchers. Moretta went out before the season started. Barucki's been gone for almost the entire year. But they've actually started to look pretty good lately, outside of the one or two obvious suspects. They have become a strength. Andrew Destin of the Post Gazette, friend of the show, wrote after the game today that coming into Sunday's game, the bullpen was ranked 7th in ERA in all of MLB since the start of June. Does that surprise you?
No, not really. Like preseason, we thought that the bullpen was going to be one of the strongest parts of the team, but due to
Sure.
injuries and a couple of guys that just started off sluggish, that turned out to not be the case. But we also knew that eventually it was going to come around.
Right.
So being seventh is it's not surprising. I mean, at this point, I would have hoped that they'd be better, but
Keep in mind that's taking into account Ben Heller's Thursday performance.
yeah, that's kind of rough.
And
But there's
not
certain
taking into
things
account this today's.
like there were certain things we knew with like Chapman how his entire career it's like either he's on or he's not.
Yep.
Like he's gonna have wild games. They were just a little more consecutive than we would have liked, but stuff pretty much everyone knew was going to happen.
Yeah, there's definitely been some issues there, but Bednar has settled down. I think he's had 10 or 11 straight games without allowing an earned run. Colin Holderman, I think he allowed an earned run in his first appearance back with the team. And then since then, nothing. He's been excellent. Luis Ortiz, he might have a sub 3 ERA right now. I'm not sure. I think it was 3.18 last time I checked. And he went 4 1/3 innings on Saturday in relief. Like Majinski went 1 2/3, and Ortiz. I don't want to say they should move him back to be a starter because he's excelling in this role, and we kind of need someone to excel in that role. But like he's been really good. Majinski's had a couple good appearances lately. Chapman, I he's gonna be hit and miss. He hit 104 the other day.
Against
He
Otani.
hasn't hit.
Like in that at bat, you saw Otani like he watched the pitch go by him and he looked back. He's like, "What the hell was that?"
And like people were saying, oh, the guns are probably hot tonight because I think was that the same game that like Jones was hitting 100 and like coming close to 101. I think he hit 101 at one point, and he hasn't hit 100 in a couple weeks. And people are like, oh, I don't know. He's hit 104 before, so it's
Right, but
kind of
it could just
crazy.
be the adrenaline and playing up to that level of competition, like we mentioned earlier.
Yep, maybe. Ortiz has a 2.61 ERA as of this recording. Nuts. Like, because he's been pitching a ton of innings. He's probably got the second lowest ERA in the pen. Any other thoughts on the two series? Obviously, you want to get a sweep. We haven't gotten a sweep since that Marlins series to open the season, which is a 4-game sweep, which is nuts. It's been a couple times where it's happened like this, where we win the first 2 games, and then that third game is just eluding us. Do you think that obviously winning a series is great? Would a sweep give the team that extra like, all right, we're a legit team regardless of who the opponent is? Or do you think it's like, okay, you just go, you win the series, you move on to the next team?
I mean, it might. I'd imagine it depends on the player, on what you need to trigger something within you. But like my opinion is, as long as you are winning or splitting series, you will finish 500 or above if you do it consistently, and that's basically going to give you either a playoff, a wild card spot at the very least, or you're going to be in the playoffs, which is all you
Yep.
can ask for. Because once you hit the playoffs, anything can happen.
And the team has been performing better. As of this recording, we're 31-34, which is not great, but it's a lot better than we were, say, a month ago. So trending in the right direction. 2 great series wins. 2 bad games in those 2 series, but 2 really great series wins. So let's go ahead and look down on the farm, see what's happening with the affiliates. Indianapolis hosting the Columbus Clippers. Indy lost 4-6 to the Clippers. Gilberto Celestino had a very strong week, posting a 1.212 OPS, 5 walks to just 1 strikeout. Mike Jarvis hit 350, 2 extra base hits. He appears to be adjusting to AAA, was having some early season struggles. Getting into a groove. Indians are now 26-35 on the season. Altoona at host Richmond Flying Squirrels. Altoona won 4-6 over Richmond. Shang-Chi Chang hit 2 home runs, 3 doubles while batting .304. And Po Yu Chen tossed his best start, probably his best start. 8 innings of 4 hit, 1 run ball, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. He's not a big strikeout guy. Usually gives up at least 3 runs in an outing. Bubba Chandler also had, I think, like 8 innings of 1 or 2 run ball. Braxton Ashcraft, I think he struck out like 12 or 14 in his start. Like, the pitching in Altoona is incredible, and the fact that we're starting to see it show up is awesome. The Curve jumped to 20-37 record. Greensboro hosting the Jersey Shore Blue Claws. Greensboro dropped 4-6 to the Blue Claws this week. Charles McAdoo continues to wreck it at high A ball. 2 home runs and a 1.014 OPS on the week. Alex Stumpf of MLB.com talked to him about his approach to the game in an article he wrote last week. Definitely advise checking that out. Really good piece. McAdoo apparently always plays with a smile on his face, and that's just something that he's just having fun with the game, and it shows, and it's awesome because you're seeing the production. Got to get him to Altoona, though. On the pitching side, Dominic Parachi threw 5 shutout frames in his start, just 1 hit, 1 walk, and a hit batter in the game. The Hoppers dropped to 31-25 on the year. And finally, Bradenton hosting the Clearwater Threshers. Bradenton took 4-6 against rival Clearwater. Javier Rivas putting up some video game numbers this week. 563, 588, 1.188 triple slash. 2 doubles, triple, 2 home runs, scored 4 runs, drove in 6. Just nuts. Carlson Reed had a strong start, 5 scoreless, 2 hits, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts as the Marauders climbed to 25-32 on the season. Ed, any thoughts on any of those players? I mentioned McAdoo. Geez, last week he's been crushing it. He's been someone who we've been following, had him in the top 30. Javier Rivas, I've been hearing about him. I don't think they got to start making some promotions soon, right?
Yeah, I was going to bring up McAdoo and how amazing he's been playing and the consistency in which he's been doing so. I think he's definitely in line for a promotion pretty soon. I mean, I don't know if anybody knew what he was when he was drafted, but I think they're finding out pretty quick.
I think we all kind of assumed he was like, I don't want to say a depth piece, but like not an impact player, more like a super utility, because he bounced around. I think he plays first, second, third, outfield, stuff like that. He was third base in the game today. He's got a 952 OPS in Greensboro, and he's been there all season. 187 at bats.
Yeah, time for him to get the old bump up.
A number of guys really need to get moved, and like there's some players that are blocking them, and it just doesn't make any sense. So, hit and miss in the minors this week because 2 teams went 4-6, or 4-2, and 2 teams went 2-4. But it's kind of how it goes in the minors sometimes. Special this week, we're going to jump right into that because All-Star voting opened this past week, and while every team gets at least 1 representative, some are more earned than others. I mean, we all remember, I'm sure we all remember, Evan Meek was an All-Star once upon a time. So who should be the Pirates representative heading to Arlington to rep Legitsburg this July? And I don't know if you watched the Apple TV game and they referred to Pittsburgh as Legitsburg. Apparently that's a thing. Never heard it, but the obvious first place to look is the rotation. Mitch Keller dropped a season ERA down to a 3.16 after posting, 1.13 ERA in 6 games since May 1st. All-Star last year, become an anchor for this rotation after that 5.18 ERA in his first 7 games. But Jared Jones right behind him, 3.27 ERA, elite strikeout and walk rates, even taking a step back at times. Today was a bump. He's had some bumps lately, but he's been a top contender for Rookie of the Year, deserving of All-Star consideration as well. And that's not even to mention our 1-1 in Paul Skeens, who less than a year after being drafted has a 3 ERA, 38 strikeouts to 6 walks, and has thrown some of the hardest pitches by a starter this season. Outside of starters, mentioned before, Colin Holderman, become one of the best relievers in baseball, 21.2 innings, 10 hits, 27 strikeouts to 9 walks, single earned run. He's got a 0.83 ERA. I think that's top 10 among all pitchers with at least 20 innings pitched. While Bednar has been looking better of late, his early season struggles probably set him back a little bit too far to make a case for his 3rd straight trip to the Summer Classic, but Holderman's someone who I think should get a look. It might be hard to argue for a 3rd rookie on this list to be considered, but what Nick Gonzalez has done over the past month is kind of sensational. Entering play today, he had a 305, 343, 505 slash line. He has more RBI since he rejoined the Pirates on May 10th than any other second baseman in baseball. Yes, it's been a small sample, but he's showing up right now. He deserves consideration. I think he added another 2 hits in the game today. Like, he's just wrecking it. I'm not going to pull up all the stats. Connor Joe, consistent as anyone on this team, had an RBI. I think maybe 2 RBI in the game today. Really clutch hit. He's fallen off a bit lately, kind of overplaying. I think if Rowdy's able to perform, gets him into that more like every so often role, he'll be performing better. Really solid for this group, would profile well as a reserve role, as unlikely as that may be. But also O'Neal Cruz. He's been on a tear this past month or so. 248, 313, 533 slash line, 6 home runs, 20 runs, 16 RBI. That's just in is that in the past month? Might be in the past month. Entering play Sunday, he went 2 for 5 with an RBI in the 10th. It's also starting to gain some more attention after that lackluster start to the season. If he can continue to punish fastballs and lay off the breaking stuff in the dirt, which he's seeing nothing except that, it's going to be hard to ignore him by the time Torey Lavulo finalizes his roster. Ed, is there anyone I missed, anyone you disagree with, or anyone with whom you strongly agree?
I don't think you missed anybody. I know you and I have talked about it previously, probably within the past week. I think you had texted me and brought it up, and I had mentioned all 3 starters that you talked about, and it was like, Skeens might get it just because of the hype, and not that he doesn't deserve it because he's been playing outstanding.
Sure,
but
it's
obviously
just a small sample.
Right,
Yeah.
being that he's a 1-1, and how he's been playing, I would not be against him making it. Keller has shown that he's still Keller with these past 6 or 7 starts. Jones, another one, like you said, in the running for Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
But a big one for me is Gonzalez. Like, since his call up, this offense has just been completely turned itself around. Like, it was so stagnant. Like we had mentioned, if you give up 2, maybe 3 runs, it was almost like, oh man, this game's almost over because the Pirates could not score.
Yeah, he's
And
been a real jolt in this offense.
Since him coming up, it's like it's a completely different team.
Yep. And I didn't, but I probably could have mentioned Bailey Falter. His 3.69 ERA is 50th in baseball entering play today. Or actually, as of that, ending play today, probably. And his whip, 1.04, is 20th in baseball among qualified starters. I think he would be like the 4th most likely starting pitcher to be picked from the Pirates. But, I mean, he's also doing really great. Let's not not downplay. He's had 2 bad starts, and outside of that, he's been like top 15 pitcher in baseball, which is insane, but also kind of true. I think that it's unlikely Connor Joe, O'Neal Cruz. I don't know. Ellie De La Cruz, I think, is going to be tough to ignore the fact that he's getting all these stolen bases. Even like batting average isn't great, but I think that shortstop is a weirdly weak position in the National League, depth wise.
I
So
I think the big thing with Cruz is that it's tough for me to be like, oh, you're an all-star if the opposing team knows if I throw you a slider low and away, you're not going to touch it. You know what I mean?
he did get a slider low and away, and he poked it into left field today.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
he
it's
had
going to
two
happen,
hits. That may have happened also on his RBI single.
but it's like
It was
like
off
you had
speed
mentioned,
away.
like breaking balls, he just struggles with so bad.
Yeah, he's not getting fastballs at all. And he gets a little over eager, and that's why he ends up kind of striking out or rolling over on pitches. So I'm hoping that we're going to have at least 2 Pirates heading to Arlington. I know we had 2 last year. And it might end up being 2 completely different guys this year. I'm hoping we have at least 2 again. So when we get closer to the selection date, we'll make our predictions because you never know. A lot can change between now and then. Looking ahead, we're heading west. Going on the road, 3 games against the Cardinals. First time that we're seeing them this season. And then 3 games in the Rocky Mountains against Colorado. First series matchups as they stand right now. We got the day off Monday, and then it'll be Paul Skeens versus Miles Michaelis, who has been one of the worst pitchers in baseball this season. Bailey Falter versus Sonny Gray in game 2, and then Mitch Keller against Lance Lynn in game 3. Predictions on this series in St. Louis. First time visiting them. They're a half game up on us currently, as we are back to last place in the NL Central.
It's amazing what one game can do. I don't know. St. Louis has been struggling quite a bit lately. I feel like the Pirates should take 2 or 3.
I mean, I think we've got a good chance in any of those matchups because Michaelis is bad. Skeens should be able to outpitch him. Gray is pretty good, but he can give up the home run ball. Lance Lynn's been resurgent since coming back to the Cardinals, but Mitch Keller's just so good. It's like, does it matter? Maybe not. So, I mean, I'm thinking 2-1. I don't think we're going to sweep. I never pretty much pick a sweep unless we go facing like a low A team. It's
And
going to
when
be
we
tough
do
to
pick
say
a
that.
sweep, we're usually completely off. It's usually the opposite.
Oh yeah, yeah. We humble ourselves immensely. So, your predictions?
I said 2 of 3.
I think that's good picks. And then Rockies series this weekend. First game TBD. We'll see how they decide to play that out. Martin Perez apparently has been doing well in recovery. He was supposed to start pitching off a slope this past weekend. Haven't heard confirmation whether he was or wasn't, but he's with the team. So at any point in time, they can just reactivate him and put him in there. I think by then it'll have been 15 days. I have to check. Actually, I'm pretty sure like 9th or 10th would have been 15 days. So it'll be TBD versus Ryan Feltner, who is, like Michaelis, been one of the worst pitchers in baseball. Jared Jones versus Southpaw in Ty Blach, Blach, not sure. And then Skeens going again, his first 2 a week, going up against Dakota Hudson, former Cardinal, I believe. Colorado not doing good. As we mentioned before, we kind of play down to competition. I believe we did win the series against Colorado last time we played them. Either that or we it was like 4 games and we split. No, we took 2 of 3. But going to Colorado, ball moves differently. Even though Skeens and Jones, they're going to throw mostly fastball, they do have sliders. Skeens has his splinker. It may be something they have to adjust to. Your predictions against the Rockies?
So even though we had just mentioned that we don't typically call for sweeps, and when we do, it's bad news,
You don't know who's pitching in game 1.
I don't care. We're going to sweep them.
Okay, let's call it a sweep. Because I don't know who's going to game 1, and it could be Perez, it could be Ortiz, it could be who knows, some kind of bullpen game, or maybe they call up Braxton Ashcraft, who I've been banging the table to say bring him up, put him in the bullpen to limit his innings.
It could be Priester too.
Priester just went out. I don't think it'll be long enough.
Yeah, but he was like retroactive to like the second or third, I thought.
I might. I'd have to check the calendar on that. Maybe it was long enough. Yeah, he did pitch last Sunday. Yeah, so it could be a couple different people, or like they said, Jeffries is the only other healthy starting pitcher down in Indianapolis. I like the bold prediction. I would love for it to come true. If we have a 5-1 week on the road, and then come home, because then we got the Red Series and then City Connect weekend against the Rays. Potential to start doing some damage against the people with the teams ahead of us in the division. Any final thoughts on this past week or where the team is overall?
I mean, it might be.
Do you think that they're in a good spot?
It might be time to call up a different reliever without naming any names.
I think that they should make at least one move.
Maybe maybe let the other team that was interested like make a little trade.
No, because here's the thing. It's probably the Rays. The Rays were probably like,
it would be the Rays.
It would 100% be the Rays. And we'd be like, yeah, go ahead and take him. And then they Robert Stevenson him.
Seriously,
have that all over again.
They're jerks.
All right. Well, hopefully we've got a really strong week ahead of us, even going on the road against teams with a losing record. But hopefully we're able to succeed against them. But that wraps it up for all of us here at the 412 Double Play podcast. You can follow me on X at 412 Double Play. Follow Ed at Ed_Wassel. Continue listening to the show, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever else podcasts can be found. Check out the articles at steelcity.com. I'm now posting previews of the Pirates' opponent starting pitcher, noon on game days. The link's in the description. I'm not going to toot my own horn. I spent a lot of time working on that stuff. Just check it out. Just get an idea of what to expect when we're facing. Because in the intro, like Joe Block and Rock and Greg, and they'll be like, oh yeah, this guy, this and this, and he's really good at this. He's really bad at this. And I'm like, I wrote all this stuff down. But appreciate it either way. Appreciate you guys listening from all of us here at the 412 Double Play podcast. Thank you for joining us this week. And let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Take it away, Sawyer.
Lady Jolly Roger, dude.